morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Clap your hands, clap, clap, clap. Stomp your feet, stomp, stomp, stomp. Spin around, spin, spin, spin. Alright. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today. Thanks for watching. Now, during the off season, there's usually not enough college football news for me to do like a standalone college football video every single day like I do during the season. So what I like to do is this series of videos called Coffee Talk. Yeah, with Uncle Lou, where I drink coffee and talk to you. About 3 or 4 different stories that's maybe going on in college football over the last few days or whatever it is. Now, don't worry, still plenty of pointless things for me to make videos about every single day of the week. It just won't always be football related during the off season, and don't let that hurt your feelings like it did yesterday. I can't believe that, okay, that video I uploaded yesterday about welcome to the off season or whatever, where there's like that video has clips in it dating back 5 or 6 years in some cases, and of course a lot of clips with the tinfoil hat. It's unbelievable to me the amount of people who see a stranger on YouTube wearing a tinfoil hat talking about the NSA or Fox News or whatever, anything, doesn't matter. They could be literally talking about anything. It's an internet stranger with a tinfoil hat on you're watching, and you get mad about it. And it happens every single time, and I've talked about this some on live streams because especially the ones at night, they're a little more free-flowing and relaxed than the ones we do during the day. And a lot of times I'll get a comment from somebody like, do some more of the tinfoil hat videos or whatever. And I've even made the comment several times during those live streams that I had to pretty much quit doing the tinfoil hat videos because people were taking them seriously. Like, I honestly can't believe it, but they were. People were getting legitimately mad about things I would say while I was wearing a tinfoil hat. I mean, I guess they were taking it seriously. I don't know. And it happened again yesterday. Even though there was nothing new in yesterday's video, it was literally just a bunch of clips strung together from pointless stuff over the last 5 or 6 years, some of it the tinfoil hat stuff. And some people got mad. People unsubscribed yesterday because they disagreed with something an internet stranger on YouTube said whilst wearing a tinfoil hat. Now just let that sink in for a little bit, but someone even left a comment about it. Which reminds me, I used to do a series of videos called Comment on the Comments. I'm going to bring that back too. I need to, and I'm going to too. What I do is, I don't know, once a week, once every couple of weeks. I'm still sort of nailing down the schedule for the off season in terms of exactly which videos will be coming out and how often they'll be coming out. So I don't want to tie myself down to a certain schedule with the comment on the comments right now. But basically, what I do is once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever, I will peruse the comment sections. I'll pick out you know, a dozen or so of the funniest ones, the dumbest ones, the maddest ones, whatever. And I'll do a video where I read those comments and respond to them on video. It's been fun to do in the past. Some people have liked it. And I don't think I've done that video. I don't think I've done a comments on the comments video since I was like around maybe 1,000 or 2,000 subscribers. So obviously now there's a lot more comments to choose from. Anyway, I'll be bringing that back in the off season. But a couple of topics we'll touch on today for Coffee Talk. with UNCLELOU, yeah. Jim Chaney to Tennessee, leaves Georgia, goes to Tennessee. What does it mean? What do I feel about it? Am I mad? Am I sad? Am I happy? I'm 50-50 on Jim Chaney. I have rode the fence with Jim Chaney for his entire 3 years at Georgia, right? I mean, you can't argue with the points per game numbers when it comes to Georgia's offense, especially over the last couple of years. I mean, we've averaged up in the high 30s points per game. We were 13th in the country in points per game this year. So if you're looking at it purely from a production standpoint in terms of points per game, then you'd have to give Chaney an A, right? The problem with looking at it that way, in my opinion, and I think even fans of other teams would have to agree with this, especially SEC teams and SEC East teams, because I see this comment all the time that supports this theory. There's a lot of bad teams in the SEC East, right? I mean, you guys love to point it out with the whole, who have Georgia played, woo. You guys point it out week in and week out for the last 2 years. And so the point is, if you go from just a talent perspective, particularly in the SEC East, Georgia really is way ahead of anyone else, even Florida, who is probably, as far as top to bottom on the roster, probably the second most talented team in the East. But they're not even really close to Georgia in terms of overall talent, right? I mean, Georgia signed more 5-stars last year and will sign more 5-stars this year than Florida has signed in the last 5, 6, 7 years total. I mean, there's a big difference. Georgia's getting ready to sign, their third top 3 class in a row. Last year was number 1, probably number 2 this year. Florida can't crack the top 10, and there's a big discrepancy there. Now, that doesn't mean that Florida can never beat Georgia, and that's not the point that I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make in terms of how this relates to Jim Chaney and the points per game thing, I honestly feel like Georgia could line up against the majority of the teams that we play. And I'm not going to name any teams in particular because this isn't a trash talk video, but if you look at like the non-con games that we play from the lower divisions, right, and then some of the weaker teams in the SEC East that we play, I honestly feel like Georgia could line up in those games and run the same 2 plays, pick them, handoff up the middle to the left, handoff up the middle to the right. I feel like Georgia could line up and run just those 2 plays and win the majority of those games 35-10, 40-14, stuff like that. I think the talent discrepancy alone between Georgia and a lot of the teams that we play supports a score like that, regardless of scheme or how advanced their offense is or anything like that. So it makes it hard for me to give Jim Chaney a ton of credit for the points per game numbers, because we're putting up a ton of points against teams that in my mind are really, really bad and way below Georgia in terms of overall talent. The complaint that I have with Chaney, and that a lot of people have with Chaney, and it's really 2 or 3 things, right? Too conservative. Now, on the too conservative front, I'm up in the air on that. Is that all on Jim Chaney? Is Kirby Smart sort of reeling him in? We'll find out, because we're going to get a different offensive coordinator now, right? And if we show up with the same sort of conservative type of play calling and game plan, then you're going to have to probably shake your head and go, well, this is probably Kirby reeling these guys in. But it's just very, very conservative. Off the top of my head, I'm willing to bet that 90% of the time on first down, we run it up the middle, no matter who we're playing. It's just way too conservative in most people's minds. The passing game is too conservative. Even when we do pass, we leave our tight ends in to block the majority of the time. Now, last year and the year before, maybe that was necessary. The offensive line wasn't where it needed to be. But this year and this coming season, Georgia's going to have one of, if not the best offensive lines in America. There's just no reason to do that. It's just way too conservative. And even if you look at the pass routes that the receivers are running, and you've heard me say this as a complaint, it's not a grown-up passing game. So that's been some of the complaint on Chaney. Predictable, conservative, and no grown-up passing game. That's usually what you hear from Georgia fans when complaining about Chaney. On top of that, there doesn't seem to be any adjustments made by Chaney in-game or game-to-game. So, okay, Georgia, runs through 5 or 6. Take this past season, for example. Georgia runs through 5 or 6 just absolutely terrible teams, right? We're scoring 40 points a game. We're beating these teams blind. I mean, it's just ridiculous. First tough game of the season, we go on the road to LSU, and we come out and we run the exact same plays, the exact schemes, same philosophy, same everything on the road at LSU that we ran at home against Vandy and on the road at South Carolina and against Mizzou and against Tennessee and these terrible teams. And it doesn't work. Obvious. I mean, most people could have told you going into that LSU game that you can't do the exact same things against Vanderbilt against LSU, right? Lining up, Georgia can line up against Vanderbilt and a lot of these other teams in the SEC East especially, right? And just line up and just run the ball down their throat. And that's sort of what I'm talking about. Can you really give Chaney all the credit for the points per game? And I don't think you can, and that's why. And then you show up at LSU, right? And you run the exact same plays, formation, schemes, basic passing concepts, everything. You run the same things against LSU that worked against Vandy and South Carolina, and then Jim Chaney's up in the booth scratching his head like, I can't believe this isn't working. Well, I can't believe you thought it would work, sir. And this has happened multiple times. I'm using LSU as an example because that's one that everybody loves to jump on from this year, but this has happened multiple times in the 3 years that Chaney has been at UGA. And so you go into halftime, you come out in the second half after nothing has worked in the first half, right? Nothing has changed up. It's the exact same thing. It's more of the same, right? The only time this really worked was in the Rose Bowl 2 seasons, not this season, but the playoff game, the Rose Bowl against Oklahoma, right? Who had the worst defense of any team we had played all year. So Oklahoma had a big lead at halftime. Georgia didn't play very well in the first half offensively, right? Come out in the second half, and we did the exact same thing, but it worked. We lined up and ran the ball against Oklahoma, but they don't, it's Oklahoma. They don't have a whole lot of talent on defense. They don't have a whole lot of technique. They can't tackle. I've been down this road. So it worked against Oklahoma, but like LSU, Auburn 2 seasons ago, right? We've seen Georgia get dominated in the second half by Alabama 2 seasons in a row now. 2 games really that I think Georgia should have won, not taking anything away from Alabama. Winning the game is what matters. Doesn't matter why or how you win. Winning is what matters. So, I do the Crow videos like I'm supposed to. Hats off to Alabama on those 2 wins. But point is, huge leads on Alabama at halftime in both those games, and offense comes out in the second half, takes the foot off the gas, way too conservative, right? Things aren't working on one drive. You don't switch it up. This year in the SEC title game, 1 first down in the fourth quarter would have won that game for Georgia, and we couldn't do it. So these are some of the complaints about Chaney. So are Georgia fans mad or upset about losing him? I really don't think there's any Georgia fans that are mad, hurt, disappointed, or whatever about losing Chaney. Now, not every Georgia fan was ready to throw Chaney away. That's not what I'm saying. And I don't want to be one of these people who praise Chaney while he's with Georgia and now all of a sudden he's gone and I'm like, oh, well, he was no good anyway. You guys know I'm honest with you about how I feel about UGA and whether it's coaches, players, whatever. I'm not always right, but I always tell you how I honestly feel. And you guys heard me go back and forth, up and down on Chaney over the last couple of years here on YouTube, sort of fence straddling with the Chaney thing, and I tried my best here to lay those reasons out as far as why. Now, Tennessee gave Chaney $1.5, $1.6 million a year. And I said this on Facebook yesterday. Even if I was a huge Chaney supporter and thought, I do not want to get, under no circumstances do I want to get rid of Chaney. Whatever my problems are with him, I'm willing to, forget about that. I want to keep Chaney no matter what. They made him the highest paid offensive coordinator in America. I'm not okay with that. If that's what it was going to take to keep Chaney, making him the highest paid offensive coordinator in America, no, I'm not for that. I don't think he deserves that. I don't think he's earned that. I don't. Like I said, I think a lot of Chaney's success at UGA is talent on the field. I'm not convinced that Georgia's offense has scored 30-plus points a game over the last couple of seasons because Chaney is dialing up some amazing scheme or play calling or whatever. I think the majority of Georgia's success on offense has been due to overwhelming talent. So in order to keep Chaney, we would have had to make him the highest paid offensive coordinator. Under no circumstances is that okay. Who do I want to get to replace Chaney? I really don't know. If I could pick somebody, I would pick a young, energetic, up-and-coming offensive mind with creativity and imagination. That ain't happening. I mean, that's just not going to happen. I love Kirby Smart. I'm happy with Kirby Smart. But like anything else in life, nothing is perfect. And there's always things you would change about anything, no matter how happy you are with it. And I do think Kirby... It seems to me like Kirby right now is trying to win national titles the same way Alabama and Nick Saban won national titles in 2010, 11, 12, 5, 6 years ago. Scoring 25, 30 points a game, hold the other team to 10 or 15 and win. And unfortunately, I just don't think you can win national titles in today's college football doing it that way. I still think you need a good defense, but some of these offenses in football today, you can't shut them down. Alabama used to win. I mean, you guys remember the Alabama LSU games, right? 6-3, 10-6, whatever it was, these field goal games. You just don't see that anymore. You just don't see that anymore. If you look at the teams at the top of college football right now, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, whoever else you want to throw in there, you're not going to shut these offenses down for the most part, right? If you can hold these offenses to 20, 25 points, you're doing pretty good. That means you got to score in the 30s. And like I said, Georgia lines up against these teams like Vandy and South Carolina and Tennessee and does it no problem. But then you go out and play a good team like Alabama, LSU, Auburn, whatever. It just doesn't work. I would bring in a young, energetic guy who could light a fire into the offense. We have a ton of skill players, 5 stars everywhere at wide receiver, probably the most talented wide receiver group we've ever had at UGA this past season, and they were completely wasted. They were just it was a waste to have them, to be honest. So we're probably going to end up with another conservative type offensive coordinator, someone that Kirby Smart can sort of control and keep on a leash. You're not going to get a Lane Kiffin type, right? He's sort of a loose cannon type of guy. Kirby Smart's not going that route. It's just not going to happen. Nick Saban made that decision 4 or 5 years ago when he looked around college football and said, okay, we need to start scoring in the 30s instead of in the 20s if we want to keep winning national titles. And I'm not sure Kirby Smart has gotten to that point yet. I hope he has. I hope we open up the offense. I hope we go with somebody who can do that, and I hope Kirby allows him to do that. But right now, I think that's up in the air. All right, Mel Tucker in the DC position at Georgia, defensive coordinator. Of course, we lost Mel Tucker. He's gone, took a head coaching job. Got to replace him. I am way less concerned about who we pick to replace Mel Tucker than I am about who we pick to replace Jim Chaney, and the reason is probably obvious to most of you. Kirby's a defensive guy. So the offensive coordinator, in my mind, is way more important on a team with a defensive head coach. I don't doubt Georgia's defense. I don't doubt Kirby. I think he'll make a good hire. The 2 names really that I'm hearing the most right now is this Lapoy clown from Alabama and Derek Ansley out in Oakland. And I believe he used to be at Alabama as he was at DC. I don't think he was a position coach. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But those are the 2 names I'm hearing: Lapoy at Alabama and Ansley out in Oakland. Lapoy seems to be getting a lot of the blame for the national championship debacle for Alabama, from what I've been reading, not just from mad, angry fans, but articles from sports writers and things like that. Maybe he wasn't quite ready for play calling duties at Alabama, and it seems like, or the theory is anyway, that he may have been promoted to defensive coordinator just because of his recruiting abilities, and Saban didn't want to lose him as a recruiter and felt like he needed to make him defensive coordinator in order to keep him in Tuscaloosa. I'm not sure how much of the blame really should be placed on Lapoy. I mean, we're only 2 or 3 days out from the national title game, and you guys know how this works, right? Alabama goes out and gets beat like that. There's going to be, all kinds of people blaming all kinds of things for that loss and what went wrong and things like that. So I'm not convinced it was all on Lapoy. I mean, the offense played poorly too, and Lapoy has nothing to do with that. Of the 2, I would prefer Ansley, but like I said, I'm not that concerned about who Kirby and UJ pick as DC, because as long as Kirby's there, I feel like the defense is going to be okay. I think the offensive coordinator position much more important. All right, there you go. Talked about a lot of these things at various times over the live streams over the last few days, but I know a lot of you guys don't watch the entire live streams. They're real long, something an hour, sometimes 2, sometimes 3 hours long. I know a lot of you don't watch all that, so figured I would put my thoughts on the coordinator position here in our first Coffee Talk video of the off season. All right, there you go. Coffee Talk with Uncle Lou. Appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. Give this video a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. Don't forget, live show tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. That's a call-in show. So stream for about an hour or 2 every Tuesday and Thursday night. Take phone calls from you guys. College football or whatever else it is you want to talk about. All right. Appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you again real soon. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning.